The fluorescent lights of Denver International Airport buzzed overhead as I sat alone on a cold metal bench at 3:17 a.m., clutching my phone with shaking hands. My husband Michael had just driven away, leaving me stranded with nothing but a carry-on, bag and a credit card that had been mysteriously declined at the airline counter. What he didn't know was that his cruel abandonment had just triggered a chain of events that would cost him everything he thought he owned. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a devoted wife of 15 years discovered that her husband had been systematically planning her destruction, and how that discovery led to the most calculated revenge I've ever orchestrated. My name is Jennifer Walsh, and until 6 months ago, I believed I was living the perfect suburban life in Scottsdale, Arizona. Our Spanish-style home on Desert Ridge Boulevard was everything Michael and I had dreamed of when we first married in 2009. The red tile roof gleamed under the Arizona sun, and our backyard pool sparkled like a jewel against the backdrop of carefully maintained desert landscaping. At 38, I had built what I thought was an enviable life. Michael, my husband of 15 years, had grown his telecommunications consulting firm from a one-man operation into a thriving business with 12 employees and contracts spanning 3 states. I had supported his entrepreneurial journey every step of the way, using my background in marketing and communications to help him land major clients while managing our household and raising our 2 children. Our daughter Emma, now 14, was excelling in her freshman year at Desert Ridge Academy, the prestigious private school where she served on student council and played varsity tennis. Our son Tyler, 12, had inherited Michael's analytical mind and was already showing promise in advanced mathematics and computer programming. Both children were thriving in an environment where financial stress was virtually non-existent and opportunities seemed limitless. Michael's business success had afforded us a lifestyle that many of our neighbors envied. We drove matching BMW SUVs, took annual vacations to European destinations, and belonged to the exclusive Pinnacle Country Club where we spent weekend afternoons playing golf and attending charity fundraisers. Our social calendar was filled with business dinners, school events, and community gatherings where we were seen as a power couple who had successfully balanced professional achievement with family values. I had sacrificed my own career ambitions to support Michael's vision, transitioning from a promising position at a Phoenix marketing agency to become a full-time wife and mother when Emma was born. It hadn't been an easy decision, but Michael had convinced me that his business needed my full attention during its critical growth phase, and that our children deserved to have at least one parent completely available to them. Over the years, I had found fulfillment in managing our household like a small business, coordinating the children's schedules, maintaining our social connections, and handling the administrative aspects of Michael's company that he found tedious. I kept meticulous records of our family finances, managed our investment portfolio, and even handled much of the correspondence with Michael's clients when he was traveling for business. Our marriage had weathered the typical challenges that come with building a life together. The sleepless nights of early parenthood, the financial stress of Michael's startup years, the logistics of managing 2 careers while raising young children. Through it all, we had maintained what everyone called a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. Michael was charming, ambitious, and devoted to providing for our family. He worked long hours and traveled frequently, but he always made time for important events in the children's lives. Soccer games, school plays, birthday parties. Michael rarely missed the moments that mattered most to Emma and Tyler. Our friends often commented on how lucky I was to have found a man who could balance professional success with genuine family commitment. The first sign that something was wrong appeared on a Tuesday morning in March, hidden in the routine chaos of getting the children ready for school. I was preparing breakfast when I noticed an unfamiliar charge on our primary credit card statement. $3,200 had been spent at a jewelry store in Phoenix, but I had no memory of any recent jewelry purchases, and Michael hadn't mentioned buying anything for my upcoming birthday. I stared at the statement, trying to remember if there was some special occasion I had forgotten. Our wedding anniversary wasn't until August. Emma's birthday had been in January, and I couldn't think of any reason Michael would have spent that much money on jewelry without mentioning it. The purchase had been made on a Thursday afternoon, when Michael claimed to have been in client meetings all day. When I called the jewelry store to inquire about the purchase, the sales associate was helpful but professional. She confirmed that a man matching Michael's description had indeed purchased an expensive diamond necklace, but store policy prevented her from sharing additional details about the transaction. The necklace was described as an anniversary gift, though she couldn't recall whether the customer had specified which anniversary he was celebrating. That evening, I mentioned the charge to Michael casually during dinner, expecting a simple explanation. Perhaps he had purchased an early birthday gift and wanted to surprise me, or maybe he had bought something for his sister's upcoming graduation. Instead, his reaction was immediate and defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, barely glancing at the statement I handed him. "Are you sure that charge is legitimate? Maybe someone stole our card information." His dismissive tone felt wrong somehow, lacking the concern I would have expected if our credit card had truly been compromised. The following week, I discovered another unusual expense. $1,800 had been charged to our account at an upscale restaurant in Tempe, a place Michael and I had never visited together. The date coincided with a business trip Michael had taken to meet with potential clients in the Phoenix metro area. When I asked him about it, he claimed he had entertained several important prospects and that the expensive dinner had been necessary to secure new contracts. His explanation seemed reasonable on the surface, but something about his delivery felt rehearsed. In 15 years of marriage, I had developed an intuition about Michael's moods and mannerisms, and his recent behavior was triggering alarm bells I couldn't quite explain. Over the next month, I began paying closer attention to our financial statements and Michael's daily routines. What I discovered was a pattern of charges that didn't align with the lifestyle we had been living together. Expensive dinners at restaurants we had never visited, hotel stays in cities where Michael claimed to be staying with clients, and purchases at stores that didn't match anything I could find in our home. The most troubling discovery came when I found a receipt that had fallen from Michael's jacket pocket while I was preparing his dry cleaning. It was for a weekend stay at the Four Seasons Resort in Sedona, one of the most expensive hotels in Arizona. The dates coincided with a weekend when Michael had told me he was attending a telecommunications conference in Las Vegas. I called the Four Seasons and spoke with a reservation agent who confirmed that Mr. and Mrs. Walsh had indeed stayed at the resort that weekend, enjoying a couple's spa package and dinner at their award-winning restaurant. The agent mentioned how lovely it had been to host our romantic getaway, completely unaware that the real Mrs. Walsh had spent that weekend at home with the children. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Michael hadn't just lied about his business trip. He had taken another woman to one of Arizona's most romantic destinations and registered her as his wife. The betrayal felt deeper than simple infidelity. It was a systematic deception that called into question everything I thought I knew about our marriage. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Michael slept peacefully beside me, completely unaware that his carefully constructed lies were beginning to unravel. The man who had shared my bed for 15 years suddenly felt like a stranger, and I found myself analyzing every conversation we had shared over the past months, looking for clues I might have missed. The next morning, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of our entire family. Instead of confronting Michael directly, I decided to conduct my own investigation into his activities. If my husband was living a double life, I needed to understand the full scope of his deception before I decided how to respond. I started by creating a detailed timeline of Michael's recent business trips, cross-referencing his claimed destinations with the actual charges on our credit cards. What emerged was a pattern of lies that spanned several months, with expenses that suggested Michael was maintaining a relationship with someone who enjoyed expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, and designer jewelry. The financial implications were staggering. Over the past 6 months, Michael had spent nearly $30,000 on expenses that had nothing to do with our family or his legitimate business activities. The money was coming from our joint accounts, representing funds that should have been allocated to our children's education, our retirement savings, and our family's long-term financial security. More disturbing was the realization that Michael's deception wasn't recent or impulsive. The pattern of unusual charges stretched back further than I had initially realized, suggesting that his secret relationship had been ongoing for quite some time. He had been systematically using our family's money to fund a parallel life while maintaining the facade of being a devoted husband and father. As I delved deeper into our financial records, I discovered that Michael had also opened several new credit cards in his name only, accounts that didn't appear on our joint statements, and that he had apparently been using to fund additional activities I knew nothing about. The scope of his financial deception was far more extensive than the obvious charges I had initially noticed. I realized that confronting Michael directly would likely result in him becoming more careful about hiding his activities rather than ending them. If I wanted to protect our family's financial future and understand the full extent of his betrayal, I needed to approach this situation strategically rather than emotionally. The woman who had spent 15 years trusting her husband completely was about to become someone very different. Someone who understood that love without verification was simply naivety, and that protecting her children's future required her to think like an investigator rather than a wife. My investigation began in earnest the following Monday when Michael left for what he claimed was a 3-day business trip to San Diego. Instead of accepting his itinerary at face value as I had done countless times before, I decided to verify every detail of his supposed professional obligations. I started by calling TechFlow Solutions, one of Michael's largest clients, under the pretense of confirming meeting times for an upcoming project. The receptionist was friendly and helpful, but her response sent chills down my spine. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Walsh, but Mr. Walsh isn't scheduled to meet with anyone from our company this week. In fact, our project manager mentioned that your husband's contract was completed last month." A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The lie was so casual, so automatic, that it made me wonder how many other business trips had been fabricated. I spent the rest of that morning calling the companies Michael claimed to be visiting, using various pretenses to verify his appointments. Out of 6 supposed meetings, only one was legitimate, a brief consultation that would have taken no more than 2 hours and certainly didn't require a 3-day trip. That afternoon, I drove to Michael's office in the Kierland Corporate Center, a sleek building where his telecommunications firm occupied a corner suite on the 3rd floor. I had visited his workplace countless times over the years, often bringing lunch or stopping by after running errands nearby. His assistant, Patricia Williams, had worked for the company for over 8 years and always greeted me warmly. "Jennifer, what a lovely surprise," Patricia said as I entered the reception area. "Michael mentioned he'd be out of town this week, but I didn't realize you were planning to stop by." "Actually, I was hoping to surprise him," I replied, maintaining a casual tone while fishing for information. "Do you happen to know which hotel he's staying at in San Diego? I thought I might send flowers to his room." Patricia's expression shifted slightly, and I could see confusion in her eyes. "San Diego? I thought he said he was going to Las Vegas for that telecommunications summit. Let me check his calendar." She pulled up Michael's schedule on her computer, her brow furrowing as she scrolled through the entries. "That's strange. His calendar shows meetings in Las Vegas through Wednesday, but there's a note here about San Diego client visits. Maybe there was a last-minute change?" The inconsistency was glaring. Michael had told me San Diego, told his assistant Las Vegas, and based on my phone calls that morning, was probably in neither location. I thanked Patricia and left the office feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. That evening, I did something I had never done in 15 years of marriage. I went through Michael's personal belongings. In his home office, hidden in a folder marked Tax Documents 2018, I found a cache of receipts and printed emails that revealed the true scope of his deception. There were dinner receipts from restaurants in Phoenix and Tucson, hotel confirmations for romantic getaways, and most damning of all, a printed itinerary for a vacation to Cabo San Lucas that had supposedly been a solo business retreat. The itinerary clearly showed two passengers, Michael Walsh and someone named Sophia Chen. The name meant nothing to me initially, but as I continued searching through Michael's hidden documents, I found more references to Sophia. Text message. Printouts showed intimate conversations spanning several months, discussing everything from restaurant preferences to weekend plans. The messages revealed a relationship that was far from casual. They talked about future plans, shared inside, jokes, and expressed feelings that Michael had stopped sharing with me years ago. One message thread particularly stood out. It was from 2 weeks earlier, when Michael had claimed to be attending a conference in Denver. Michael: "Can't wait to see you tonight. Dinner at 8? Sophia: "Perfect. I'll wear the necklace you bought me. Still can't believe how beautiful it is. Michael: "You deserve beautiful things. Soon we won't have to sneak around anymore. Sophia: "I know, baby. Just a few more months and everything will be different." The reference to "a few more months" suggested that Michael wasn't just having an affair, he was planning something more permanent. The necklace mentioned was clearly the $3,200 purchase I had questioned him about, and the promise that they wouldn't have to sneak around anymore implied that Michael was planning to leave our marriage. I spent the rest of the night reading through the messages, each one revealing more about the relationship Michael had been hiding from me. Sophia Chen was 29 years old, worked as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup in Phoenix, and had been seeing Michael for nearly 10 months. She believed that Michael was in the process of getting divorced and that they would be able to start a new life together once his complicated financial situation was resolved. The messages also revealed that Michael had been telling Sophia elaborate stories about our marriage, painting me as an emotionally distant wife who was only interested in his money. According to his version of events, I was threatening to take everything in a vindictive divorce, and he was working with lawyers to protect his assets before filing for separation. None of this was true, of course. I had no intention of divorcing Michael until I discovered his affair, and I had never threatened him financially or otherwise. But his lies to Sophia explained why she seemed so comfortable with their relationship. She believed she was helping a man escape from an unhappy marriage rather than participating in the destruction of a happy family. More disturbing were the messages discussing Michael's business and our family's finances. He had apparently told Sophia that he was planning to sell his telecommunications company and use the proceeds to start fresh in California, where she had family connections that could help him establish a new business. The timeline for this plan coincided with Emma's graduation from 8th grade and Tyler's transition to middle school, major milestones that Michael was apparently planning to miss entirely. The financial implications of Michael's secret plans were staggering. His telecommunications business was valued at approximately $800,000, representing the bulk of our family's net worth. Our house was worth another $650,000, and we had investment accounts totaling around $400,000. If Michael sold the business and liquidated our assets to fund his new life with Sophia, he would be leaving me and the children with virtually nothing. Wednesday evening, Michael returned from his supposed business trip with gifts for the children and flowers for me, playing the role of the devoted family man returning from a successful professional endeavor. He described his meetings in detail, mentioning specific clients and challenges that I now knew were completely fabricated. "How was San Diego?" I asked casually as we prepared for bed. Actually, there was a last-minute change, Michael replied, without missing a beat. I ended up spending most of my time in Las Vegas at a telecommunications summit, much more productive than the original San Diego meetings would have been. His ability to lie so smoothly and confidently was almost impressive. I realized that this level of deception didn't develop overnight. Michael had probably been lying to me about various things for years, and I had been too trusting to notice or question his stories. The next morning, I decided to learn more about Sophia Chen. A simple Google search revealed her LinkedIn profile, showing that she worked for Innovate Tech Solutions, a Phoenix-based startup that specialized in marketing automation software. Her profile photo showed an attractive Asian American woman with long dark hair and a professional demeanor. Further research revealed that Sophia had graduated from Arizona State University with a degree in marketing and communications, and that she had been working in the Phoenix tech scene for about 6 years. Her social media profiles showed someone who enjoyed hiking, fine dining, and traveling, activities that aligned perfectly with the expensive charges I had discovered on our credit cards. I also found evidence that Michael and Sophia had been introduced through professional networking events. Innovate Tech Solutions had been a client of Michael's telecommunications company briefly, though the contract had ended months before their personal relationship began. This explained how they had met and why Sophia had initially trusted Michael's professional credentials. Armed with this information, I began to understand the full scope of Michael's deception. He hadn't just stumbled into an affair. He had systematically built a relationship with someone who could help him transition to a new life, using our family's money to fund the courtship, while lying to both Sophia and me about his true intentions and circumstances. The most heartbreaking discovery came when I found Michael's browsing history on his laptop, which he had apparently forgotten to clear after his latest trip. He had been researching divorce laws in Arizona, specifically focusing on asset protection strategies and custody arrangements. He had also been looking at real estate listings in San Diego and Orange County, areas where Sophia had mentioned having family connections. One particularly damning search query read, "How to protect business assets during divorce Arizona." Another was, "Minimum child support requirements, divorced father." These searches revealed that Michael wasn't just planning to leave, he was strategically preparing to minimize his financial obligations to me and the children while maximizing what he could take with him to start his new life. The emotional impact of these discoveries was overwhelming. The man I had loved and trusted for 15 years had been systematically planning to abandon our family while using our joint resources to fund his exit strategy. Every family dinner, every conversation about the children's future, every moment of apparent intimacy had been tainted by his secret agenda. But alongside the heartbreak, I felt something else emerging, a cold, calculating anger that demanded action. Michael had underestimated the woman he had married, assuming that I would be a passive victim in his carefully orchestrated plan. He had no idea that his betrayal was about to trigger consequences he had never anticipated. I realized that simply confronting Michael about his affair would accomplish nothing except alerting him to my knowledge and giving him the opportunity to accelerate his timeline, or better hide his assets. If I wanted to protect my children's future and ensure that Michael faced real consequences for his deception, I needed to think strategically rather than emotionally. The devoted wife who had supported Michael's dreams for 15 years was about to become his worst nightmare. And the best part was that he would never see it coming. The morning after discovering Michael's secret communications with Sophia Chen, I made a decision that would fundamentally change the course of our family's future. Instead of confronting my husband directly, I decided to build an ironclad case that would protect my children and ensure that Michael's betrayal would cost him everything he thought he could steal from us. My first call was to Rebecca Martinez, a family law attorney whose name I had seen in the Phoenix Business Journal's Top Legal Minds feature. Rebecca's firm, Martinez and Associates, specialized in high-asset divorce cases, and had a reputation for aggressive advocacy on behalf of betrayed spouses. Her office was located in the prestigious Cityscape building downtown, and her initial consultation fee of $500 signaled that she was serious about protecting her client's interests. "Mrs. Walsh," Rebecca said as I settled into the leather chair across from her mahogany desk, "based on what you've described over the phone, your husband appears to be engaged in what we call financial infidelity, combined with traditional adultery. The combination creates several legal opportunities for protecting your assets and ensuring favorable custody arrangements." Rebecca was a sharp woman in her mid-40s with steel gray hair and penetrating brown eyes that suggested she had seen every type of marital deception imaginable. Her office walls displayed diplomas from Stanford Law School and numerous awards from the Arizona State Bar Association, but more importantly, they showcased photographs of her with clients who had clearly emerged victorious from difficult divorce proceedings. "The key," Rebecca continued, "is documenting everything before your husband realizes that you're aware of his activities. Once he knows you've discovered his affair, he'll likely accelerate his timeline and become more sophisticated." About hiding assets, "We need to move quickly but carefully." Rebecca explained that Arizona was a community property state, which meant that all assets acquired during marriage were presumed to belong equally to both spouses. However, she also noted that courts could deviate from equal distribution when one spouse had engaged in financial misconduct or had wasted marital assets on extramarital relationships. "Your husband's expenditures on his girlfriend could be classified as dissipation of marital assets," Rebecca explained. "If we can prove that he spent significant community property funds on his affair, the court can award you a larger share of the remaining assets to compensate for those losses." More importantly, Rebecca outlined how Michael's secret planning to relocate and abandon the children could impact custody arrangements. Courts don't look favorably on parents who make unilateral decisions to relocate without considering their children's best interests. If we can demonstrate that your husband was planning to leave Arizona without proper custody arrangements, it strengthens your position significantly. Rebecca recommended that I hire a private investigator to document Michael's ongoing relationship with Sophia Chen, while simultaneously working with a forensic accountant to trace all marital assets and identify any hidden accounts or investments. She also suggested that I begin secretly recording conversations with Michael to document any admissions or lies he might tell about his future plans. "The goal isn't just to win a divorce case," Rebecca emphasized. "The goal is to ensure that your husband's betrayal costs him as much as possible while preserving your family's financial security and your children's stability." My next appointment was with Samuel Rodriguez, the private investigator Rebecca had recommended. Sam operated Rodriguez investigations from a modest office in Tempe, but his credentials were impressive. A former detective with the Phoenix Police Department, he had spent 12 years investigating white-collar crimes before starting his own firm specializing in matrimonial investigations. "Mrs. Walsh," Sam said as we reviewed the evidence I had already gathered, "your husband and Ms. Chen aren't being particularly careful about their relationship. Based on the text messages you've shown me, I should be able to document their activities comprehensively within a few weeks." Sam explained that modern surveillance techniques relied heavily on digital tracking and social media monitoring, rather than the traditional methods most people associated with private investigation. He could track Michael's movements through his cell phone location data, monitor his social media activity, and document his interactions with Sophia without ever getting close enough to be detected. "The beauty of investigating cheating spouses in 2024, Sam said with a slight smile, "is that they document everything themselves. Every restaurant check-in, every hotel reservation, every romantic photo. They're creating evidence for us without realizing it." Sam also recommended that I install monitoring software on our family computer to track Michael's browsing activity and email communications. The software was completely legal since I was a co-owner of the computer and our home network, and it would provide real-time intelligence about Michael's plans and activities. Within 48 hours of hiring Sam, I had access to a wealth of information about Michael's secret life. The monitoring software revealed that he had been using a separate Gmail account to communicate with Sophia, and that he had been researching everything from divorce lawyers to real estate agents in California. One particularly damning email chain showed Michael corresponding with a business broker about selling his telecommunications company. He had apparently been exploring the sale for over 2 months, getting valuations and discussing potential terms with prospective buyers. The timeline coincided perfectly with his intensifying relationship with Sophia and his research into divorce strategies. Even more shocking was an email Michael had sent to Sophia discussing their future together. "Baby, I've been talking to my business broker, and it looks like I can get at least $750,000 for the company. After I pay off some business debts and handle the divorce settlement, we should have enough to start fresh in San Diego. I'm thinking we could buy a small place near the beach and I could start a consulting practice. It would be a completely new beginning for both of us." Sophia's response was equally revealing. "I can't wait to start our life together. I've been looking at apartments in La Jolla, and there are some beautiful places near my cousin Maria. She thinks you'll love the area, and she has connections that could help you get clients quickly. Just promise me we won't have to wait much longer. I hate all this sneaking around." The emails confirmed that Michael wasn't just having an affair. He was actively planning to liquidate our family's primary asset and relocate to California with his girlfriend. The divorce settlement he mentioned to Sophia suggested that he was planning to give me the minimum amount required by law while keeping the majority of the business proceeds for himself. Meanwhile, Sam's surveillance was producing photographic evidence of Michael and Sophia's relationship. Within a week, he had documented 3 separate dinner dates, a weekend getaway to Flagstaff, and multiple visits to Sophia's apartment in Scottsdale. The photographs showed a couple clearly comfortable with each other, holding hands, kissing, and behaving like they were in a committed relationship. One particularly valuable piece of evidence came when Sam followed Michael to a jewelry store in Phoenix, the same store where the mysterious $3,200 charge had originated. This time, Michael purchased a pair of diamond earrings worth $2,800, which Sam documented with both photographs and a receipt obtained from the store's security footage. The earrings appeared in Sophia's social media posts 3 days later, worn to a company party at Innovate Tech Solutions. Her Instagram caption read, "Feeling grateful for the beautiful gifts life brings. Some people know exactly how to make you feel special." The post had been liked by several of her coworkers, including her supervisor, suggesting that Sophia wasn't keeping her relationship entirely secret within her professional circle. As the evidence mounted, I began to understand the full scope of Michael's deception and the timeline he was following. Based on his communications with business brokers and real estate agents, he was planning to complete the sale of his company within the next 4 months. His discussions with Sophia suggested that he intended to file for divorce immediately after the business sale was finalized, presumably to prevent me from having any claim to the proceeds. The forensic accountant Rebecca had recommended, David Kim, provided additional insights into Michael's financial planning. After reviewing our family's accounts and business records, David discovered that Michael had been systematically reducing the reported value of his telecommunications company by deferring income and accelerating expenses. "Your husband has been manipulating his business finances to minimize the apparent value of the company," David explained during our consultation. "He's been delaying invoice payments from clients while prepaying expenses to vendors, creating an artificial picture of reduced profitability. This is a common tactic used by business owners who are planning to divorce." David also discovered that Michael had opened a business account at a different bank, ostensibly for a new subsidiary of his telecommunications company. However, the account activity suggested that it was actually being used to accumulate cash that would be hidden from divorce proceedings. Over the past 6 months, Michael had transferred nearly $85,000 into this secret account through a series of consulting payments that appeared legitimate on the surface, but were actually transfers from his main business account. The good news, David continued, is that all of these financial manipulations leave extensive paper trails. In divorce court, judges don't appreciate spouses who try to hide assets or manipulate business valuations. Your husband's attempts to reduce his apparent net worth will actually work against him when we present evidence of his deception. Armed with this information, Rebecca began developing a comprehensive legal strategy that would expose Michael's financial misconduct while protecting our family's interests. The plan involved multiple phases, each designed to give Michael enough rope to hang himself while ensuring that his deception would be thoroughly documented for court proceedings. Phase 1, Rebecca explained, involves continuing to gather evidence while your husband remains unaware of our investigation. We want him to feel confident in his plans so that he continues making mistakes and creating evidence for us. Phase 2 will begin when your husband starts taking concrete steps to implement his exit strategy, either by filing for divorce or by completing the sale of his business. At that point, we'll file emergency motions to freeze all marital assets and prevent him from dissipating any additional community property. Phase 3 will be the actual divorce proceedings, where we'll present all the evidence we've gathered to demonstrate your husband's financial misconduct and his plan to abandon the children. The goal is to secure you the maximum possible share of marital assets while ensuring favorable custody arrangements. As I left Rebecca's office that afternoon, I felt a sense of control returning to my life for the first time since discovering Michael's betrayal. The devastated wife who had spent sleepless nights wondering how her marriage had gone wrong was being replaced by a strategic woman who understood exactly how to fight back against her husband's deception. Michael had spent months planning his betrayal, carefully manipulating finances and building relationships that he thought would enable him to start fresh with minimal consequences. What he hadn't anticipated was that his wife was not the passive victim he had assumed her to be. The woman, who had supported his business success for 15 years, was about to use that same strategic thinking to ensure that his betrayal would cost him everything he thought he could steal from our family. The investigation was just beginning, but already I could see the outlines of Michael's downfall taking shape. Every lie he told, every secret meeting with Sophia, every financial manipulation he attempted was being documented and would eventually be used against him in court. The devoted husband and father who commanded respect in our community was about to discover that his double life had been built on a foundation that was about to crumble beneath him. 3 weeks into my investigation, I made a discovery that would change everything. While searching through Michael's home office for additional financial documents, I found something he had apparently forgotten about entirely: a file folder labeled Walsh Family Trust, 2009, buried beneath years of tax returns and business contracts. Inside the folder were legal documents I had signed during our early marriage, but had completely forgotten about. Michael's late grandfather, Theodore Walsh, had established a substantial family trust before his death in 2010, and both Michael and I had been named as co-trustees when we married. The trust contained assets worth over $1.2 million, including rental properties in Phoenix and Tucson, stock portfolios, and a significant cash reserve. What made this discovery so significant wasn't just the size of the trust, it was the specific terms and conditions that Theodore Walsh had written into the legal structure. The elderly man had been a conservative businessman who believed strongly in family values and marital commitment. The trust documents contained what lawyers call a morality clause that would have severe consequences for any beneficiary who violated the sanctity of marriage. I called Rebecca Martinez immediately to discuss the implications of this discovery. When I arrived at her office the next morning with the complete trust documentation, her reaction was immediate and decisive. "Mrs. Walsh, your husband has just handed you the keys to his financial destruction," Rebecca said after carefully reviewing the trust documents. "This morality clause is extremely well written and enforceable under Arizona law. If we can prove that Michael has violated the terms through adultery and abandonment of family responsibilities, he will forfeit his entire interest in the trust. The trust language was archaic but crystal clear. Any beneficiary who engages in conduct that violates the sacred bonds of matrimony or abandons their duties as a spouse and parent shall forfeit all rights, interests, and benefits under this trust. Such forfeiture shall be permanent and irrevocable, with the affected beneficiary's share reverting to the remaining co-trustee. Rebecca explained that the trust structure gave me several powerful advantages I hadn't realized I possessed. As co-trustee, I had equal authority over all trust decisions and distributions. More importantly, if Michael were removed as a beneficiary due to his violation of the morality clause, his entire 50% interest in the trust would revert to me automatically. This changes our entire strategy, Rebecca continued. Instead of fighting over community property in a divorce, we're now looking at a situation where your husband's infidelity will cost him over $600,000 in trust assets that he currently believes belong to him. But the trust documents revealed an even more devastating consequence for Michael's secret plans. Theodore Walsh had structured the trust to include a business integration clause that tied Michael's telecommunications company directly to the trust assets. When Michael had used trust funds as seed money to start his business in 2011, he had signed agreements making the business partially dependent on continued trust support. David Kim, the forensic accountant, helped me understand the full implications of this business connection. Your husband has been using trust income to supplement his business operations for over a decade, David explained. According to these documents, approximately 30% of his company's current value is tied to ongoing trust support through low interest, loans, and shared office facilities. This meant that if Michael lost his beneficiary status in the trust, he would also lose access to the financial infrastructure that had helped build his telecommunications company. The business he was planning to sell for $750,000 would suddenly become much less valuable without trust support, potentially reducing its market value by $200,000 or more. Even more significant was a clause I found buried deep in the trust documents that dealt with fraudulent conveyance, legal language that prevented beneficiaries from selling or transferring trust-related assets if they were planning to hide proceeds from family obligations. Michael's scheme to sell his business and relocate to California with Sophia could be classified as fraudulent conveyance, which would give me legal grounds to block the sale entirely. Your grandfather-in-law was obviously a very shrewd businessman, Rebecca observed. He anticipated the possibility of family disputes and created legal mechanisms to protect the trust assets from beneficiaries who might act irresponsibly. Rebecca recommended that I immediately file confidential paperwork with the probate court to initiate proceedings under the trust's morality clause. The legal process would require presenting evidence of Michael's adultery and abandonment plans to a neutral arbitrator, who would then make a binding determination about whether the terms had been violated. The beauty of this approach, Rebecca explained, is that trust proceedings are confidential and separate from divorce court. Your husband won't know that his beneficiary status is being challenged until the arbitrator makes a final ruling. By then, it will be too late for him to modify his behavior or protect his interests. As I prepared for this new legal strategy, Sam Rodriguez's surveillance operation provided crucial evidence about the extent of Michael's relationship with Sophia Chen. His latest report included photographs of Michael and Sophia shopping for furniture at high-end stores in Scottsdale, apparently selecting items for their planned new home in California. Even more damning was audio evidence Sam had obtained using long-range listening equipment during one of their dinner dates. The recording captured Michael making specific promises to Sophia about their future together. Once I get the business sold and deal with the divorce paperwork, we can start house hunting in San Diego. I'm thinking we should look for something with an ocean view, maybe in La Jolla or Del Mar. Money won't be an issue. Between the business sale and my other assets, we'll have enough to buy a nice place and still have plenty left over for my consulting practice. Sophia's response was equally revealing. I've been thinking about giving my notice at Innovate Tech once we're ready to move. Maybe I could help you with the marketing side of your new business. We'd make a great team professionally and personally. The audio evidence proved that Michael wasn't just planning to abandon our family, he was actively recruiting Sophia to be his business partner in his new life. The conversation also revealed that Michael had been lying to Sophia about the extent of his assets, suggesting he had much more money available than he had actually told her about. Sam's investigation also uncovered something that would prove crucial to our legal strategy. Through his contacts in the Phoenix business community, Sam learned that Michael had been meeting with real estate developers who were interested in purchasing his telecommunications company as part of a larger acquisition strategy. These meetings had been occurring for months, long before Michael's relationship with Sophia had become serious. "Your husband didn't start planning to sell his business because of his affair," Sam explained. "The affair seems to have developed after he had already decided to liquidate his assets and relocate. This suggests a much more calculated approach to abandoning his family responsibilities." This timeline was significant because it demonstrated that Michael's plans to abandon our family weren't impulsive decisions driven by romantic passion. They were coldly calculated business decisions that he had been developing for months, before his relationship with Sophia provided the personal motivation to execute them. Meanwhile, my monitoring of Michael's electronic communications revealed that he had been researching international banking and investment options. His browsing history showed extensive research into offshore accounts, cryptocurrency investments, and tax havens that wealthy individuals use to hide assets from creditors and family obligations. One particularly disturbing discovery was a series of emails between Michael and a financial consultant who specialized in asset protection strategies for high-net-worth individuals facing family litigation. The consultant had provided Michael with detailed advice about moving money offshore and structuring investments to minimize exposure during divorce proceedings. The consultant's recommendations included: consider establishing accounts in jurisdictions with strong banking privacy laws and limited cooperation with U.S. family courts. The Cayman Islands and Switzerland remain popular options for clients in your situation. Cryptocurrency investments can also provide significant privacy advantages, though liquidity can be more challenging. These communications proved that Michael wasn't just planning to leave our family, he was actively working to ensure that we would have no ability to recover fair financial support, even through legal proceedings. He was essentially planning to steal our family's assets and hide them beyond the reach of Arizona courts. Armed with this evidence, Rebecca filed a comprehensive motion under the trust's morality clause, presenting documentation of Michael's adultery, his plans to abandon family responsibilities, and his attempts to hide marital assets offshore. The arbitration process would take approximately 6 weeks, during which Michael would continue believing that his secret plans were proceeding smoothly. The key now is maintaining the facade that you're unaware of your husband's activities, Rebecca advised. "We want him to feel confident enough to continue making mistakes and creating additional evidence for us." Rebecca also recommended that I begin secretly transferring assets that weren't tied to the trust or Michael's business into accounts that would be protected during divorce proceedings. As co-owner of our family's investment accounts, I had legal authority to move money into individual retirement accounts and education savings plans for the children. "Your husband has been planning his financial strategy for months," Rebecca said. "It's time for you to implement your own asset protection plan." Over the next 2 weeks, I carefully moved $180,000 from our joint investment accounts into protected vehicles that Michael couldn't access or claim in divorce proceedings. I also transferred ownership of some family heirlooms and jewelry into a separate safety deposit box that only I could access. David Kim helped me document every transaction with detailed legal justifications that would protect me from any accusations of hiding assets. Unlike Michael's secretive offshore planning, my asset protection strategies were completely legal and transparent, designed to preserve family resources for the children's benefit rather than hide money from legitimate obligations. As I implemented these financial protections, I began to feel a sense of empowerment that I hadn't experienced since discovering Michael's betrayal. The woman who had trusted her husband completely for 15 years was being replaced by someone who understood that love without verification was simply naivety, and that protecting her children's future required sophisticated planning and strategic thinking. Michael continued his daily routine, completely unaware that his secret activities were being documented and that his beneficiary status in his grandfather's trust was being challenged in confidential legal proceedings. Every lie he told, every romantic dinner with Sophia, every financial manipulation he attempted was being carefully recorded and would eventually be used against him in multiple legal venues. The devoted husband and father who had spent months planning to abandon his family was about to discover that the wife he had underestimated possessed weapons he had never known existed. The trust fund that he had essentially forgotten about was about to become the instrument of his financial destruction, and the business he was planning to sell to fund his new life was about to become much less valuable than he had imagined. Theodore Walsh's conservative values and careful legal planning were about to reach across more than a decade to ensure that his grandson's betrayal would cost him everything he thought he had secured for his future. The moment I had been preparing for arrived on a Tuesday morning in late September when Michael announced over breakfast that he needed to take an important business trip to Los Angeles. What he didn't know was that Sam Rodriguez had been monitoring his communications and had already informed me that this business trip was actually a romantic getaway to Laguna Beach with Sophia Chen, where they planned to tour potential wedding venues and meet with a real estate agent about purchasing property in Southern California. The telecommunications conference in LA could lead to some major contracts, Michael said casually as he scrolled through his phone, probably reading text messages from Sophia about their travel arrangements. I'll be gone from Thursday through Sunday, but it could really expand our client base into the California market. I nodded supportively while internally marveling at how effortlessly he could lie to my face. According to Sam's intelligence, Michael had made reservations at the Montage Laguna Beach Resort under the name Mr. and Mrs. Michael Chen, apparently using Sophia's surname to avoid any connection to his real identity. The 4-day trip was costing over $8,000, all charged to our joint credit card account under the guise of business expenses. That sounds wonderful, I replied, maintaining the facade of the supportive wife. I hope the meetings go well. The children and I will miss you, but we understand how important this opportunity could be for the business. What Michael didn't realize was that his absence would give me the perfect opportunity to implement the next phase of my strategy. Rebecca Martinez had advised me to wait for a moment when Michael would be completely distracted and unable to monitor his business affairs closely. His romantic weekend with Sophia would provide exactly that window. Thursday morning, as Michael loaded his luggage into his BMW and kissed me goodbye with the same casual affection he had shown for 15 years, I felt a strange sense of calm. The man who was driving away to spend our family's money on his girlfriend had no idea that his carefully constructed double life was about to implode spectacularly. 3 hours after Michael's departure, I received a call from Rebecca with news that changed everything. The trust arbitrator had completed his review of our evidence and had reached a preliminary decision about Michael's violation of the morality clause. "Jennifer, I have excellent news," Rebecca said, barely containing her excitement. "Arbitrator, Williams has found clear and convincing evidence that Michael violated the trust's morality provisions. He's issuing a preliminary ruling that Michael's beneficiary status should be revoked immediately, pending a final hearing in 2 weeks. The implications were staggering. Even the preliminary ruling gave me emergency authority to freeze all trust assets and prevent Michael from making any major financial decisions that might affect the trust's interests. This included his planned sale of the telecommunications business, since the company was partially dependent on trust support. There's more. Rebecca continued. Arbitrator Williams was particularly disturbed by the evidence showing Michael's attempts to hide assets offshore. He's recommending that the case be referred to federal authorities for investigation of potential tax evasion and financial fraud. Within hours of receiving the arbitrator's preliminary ruling, I was able to implement financial controls that Michael had never imagined possible. David Kim helped me freeze the business accounts that Michael had been using to accumulate cash for his escape plan, and Rebecca filed emergency motions to prevent the sale of any major assets until the trust proceedings were completed. The most satisfying action was calling American Express to report that Michael's business credit cards had been compromised and should be frozen immediately. Since I was listed as an authorized account manager on his business accounts, I had the legal authority to request security holds on any cards that might be used fraudulently. By Thursday evening, Michael's ability to access significant amounts of cash had been virtually eliminated. His personal credit card still worked for small purchases, but any attempt to make large expenditures or transfer substantial amounts of money would be blocked by the security holds I had implemented. The timing was perfect. Michael was at the Montage Laguna Beach with Sophia, probably enjoying an expensive dinner and planning their future together, completely unaware that his access to the family fortune had just been severed. The $8,000 he was spending on their romantic getaway would be among the last significant purchases he would be able to make using our family's resources. Friday morning brought even more dramatic developments. Sam Rodriguez called with urgent news about Michael's activities in Laguna Beach that escalated the situation beyond anything I had anticipated. "Jennifer, you need to hear this immediately," Sam said, his voice tense with excitement. "I've been monitoring Michael's activities at the resort, and he just proposed to Sophia Chen last night at dinner. They're currently at a jewelry store in Newport Beach shopping for wedding rings." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Michael wasn't just planning to leave our family. He was actively planning to marry his girlfriend while still legally married to me. The implications for bigamy charges were obvious, but the emotional impact was devastating. The man who had pledged to love me forever was now making the same promises to another woman. Sam continued with even more shocking information. "There's something else. Michael has been telling people at the resort that he's recently divorced, and that Sophia is his fiancée. He's introduced her to other guests as his future wife, and has been openly discussing their wedding plans." The photographs Sam transmitted to my phone showed Michael and Sophia holding hands as they examined engagement rings, both of them appearing radiantly happy and completely absorbed in their romantic fantasy. One image showed Michael slipping a diamond ring onto Sophia's finger while she smiled with obvious joy and excitement. But Sam had also captured something that would prove legally significant. Michael had apparently been drinking heavily during their celebration dinner, and Sam's audio equipment had recorded him making specific statements about his financial situation that contradicted everything he had told me about our family's assets. "Baby, money is never going to be a problem for us." Michael's voice was clearly audible on the recording. "Between my business sale and my trust fund inheritance, we'll have at least $2 million to start our new life. We can buy that house in Del Mar, and I can start my consulting practice without worrying about income for years." The reference to his trust fund inheritance was particularly damning, since Michael apparently still believed he would have access to Theodore Walsh's trust assets. His promise of $2 million also suggested that he had been lying to me about the true value of his business and our family's net worth. Even more incriminating was another segment of the recording where Michael discussed his timeline for ending our marriage. "I'm planning to file for divorce as soon as I get back from this trip. My lawyer says that if I move quickly, I can probably get the whole thing finalized within 6 months. Jennifer won't fight it. She's always been too passive to cause problems. She'll take whatever settlement I offer and be grateful for it." His casual dismissal of me as too passive to cause problems was both insulting and revealing. Michael had so thoroughly underestimated my intelligence and determination that he felt comfortable making these statements to his girlfriend without any concern that they might ever be used against him. The recordings also revealed that Sophia was completely unaware of Michael's true marital status. In one conversation, she expressed concern about meeting Michael's children, apparently believing that they were from his previous marriage rather than his current family. "I'm a little nervous about meeting Emma and Tyler," Sophia said during one recorded exchange. "I know how hard divorce can be on kids, and I want to make sure they're comfortable with me being in their father's life." Michael's response was manipulative and cruel. "Don't worry about it. They're old enough to understand that their mother and I weren't happy together. They'll be excited to see me in a relationship with someone who actually appreciates me." His willingness to lie to Sophia about our marriage while simultaneously planning to destroy our family showed a level of callousness that I hadn't fully appreciated before. Michael wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying everyone who trusted him, including the woman he claimed to love. The evidence Sam had gathered during Michael's Laguna Beach trip provided everything Rebecca needed to file emergency motions for immediate relief. By Friday afternoon, she had submitted paperwork to the family court requesting temporary restraining orders that would prevent Michael from selling or transferring any business assets, making any large expenditures from joint accounts, removing any property from our family home, taking the children out of Arizona without court permission, contacting any financial institutions about our family accounts. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, giving us the weekend to prepare our presentation, while Michael remained blissfully unaware that his legal troubles were mounting exponentially. Rebecca also recommended that I change all the passwords on our family's financial accounts and home security systems while Michael was out of town. Once he returns and realizes that his access has been restricted, he may become desperate and unpredictable, she warned. "We need to ensure that he can't do any additional damage to your family's interests." Saturday morning, I implemented a comprehensive security protocol that would prevent Michael from accessing any sensitive family information or assets. I changed passwords on our bank accounts, investment portfolios, home alarm system, and even our children's school records. I also removed Michael's access to our joint safe deposit box and transferred its contents to a new box that only I could access. The most satisfying action was canceling Michael's authorized user status on our family credit cards while he was still using them in California. By Saturday afternoon, any attempt he made to charge significant expenses would be declined, presumably creating an embarrassing situation during his romantic getaway. Sure enough, Sam called Saturday evening with news that Michael's credit cards had been declined during an expensive dinner at an exclusive restaurant in Dana Point. The incident had apparently caused a scene, with Michael frantically calling credit card companies from the restaurant while Sophia waited in embarrassment. He spent over an hour on the phone trying to resolve the credit card issues, Sam reported. The restaurant manager eventually had to ask them to settle their bill with cash or leave. Michael ended up paying with what appeared to be his last available credit card, but he looked extremely agitated by the whole experience. The credit card incident was just the beginning of what would become a cascade of financial restrictions that would make Michael's final days of freedom increasingly difficult. By Sunday, he would discover that his access to business accounts had been frozen, that his company's line of credit had been suspended pending legal review, and that his ability to make any significant financial moves had been completely eliminated. As I prepared for Michael's return on Sunday evening, I felt a mixture of anticipation and satisfaction. The man who had spent months planning my destruction was about to discover that his careful schemes had been completely outmaneuvered by the woman he had dismissed as too passive to cause problems. The devoted wife who had supported his dreams for 15 years was about to become his worst nightmare. And the best part was that he still had no idea what was coming. Michael's romantic weekend with Sophia had been funded by the last significant amount of our family's money he would ever be able to access, and his proposal to her would soon be revealed as a promise he had no ability to keep. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose Michael's deception to everyone who mattered, while ensuring that his betrayal would cost him everything he thought he had secured for his future. Michael returned from his Laguna Beach proposal trip on Sunday evening with a glow of satisfaction that made my stomach turn. He walked through our front door carrying expensive shopping bags and wearing the confident smile of a man who believed his secret plans were proceeding perfectly. What he didn't know was that I had been tracking every moment of his romantic getaway and that his world was about to collapse in the most spectacular way imaginable. "How was the telecommunications conference?" I asked sweetly as he set down his luggage in our foyer, maintaining the same supportive wife facade I had perfected over the past months. "Incredibly productive," Michael replied without hesitation, already reaching for his phone to check messages. "I made some great connections that should lead to major contracts next year. The California market is really opening up for telecommunications consulting." His ability to lie so smoothly while standing in our family home, fresh from proposing to another woman, was almost impressive in its audacity. I could see the faint tan line on his ring finger where he had apparently removed his wedding band during the trip, and there was a subtle cologne scent that I didn't recognize, probably something Sophia had chosen during their romantic shopping excursions. "I'm so glad it went well," I said, watching his face carefully. "Did you have any problems with the credit cards? I noticed some unusual activity alerts from the bank." For the first time since his return, Michael's confident expression faltered slightly. "Yeah, there were some weird technical issues on Saturday night. Probably just the bank's fraud protection being overly cautious. I'll call them tomorrow to sort it out." His casual dismissal of the credit card problems revealed that he still had no idea how comprehensively his financial access had been restricted. Michael believed he was dealing with minor technical glitches rather than the systematic dismantling of his ability to access our family's assets. Monday morning arrived with a series of phone calls that would shatter Michael's illusions forever. The first came from his business bank at 8:30 a.m., informing him that all his company accounts had been frozen pending legal review. The second was from his business attorney, who had received emergency court documents related to asset preservation orders. The third was from his CPA, who had been contacted by federal investigators requesting documentation of all business transactions over the past 2 years. I watched from our kitchen as Michael paced frantically through his home office, making increasingly desperate phone calls to try to understand what was happening to his carefully laid plans. His voice grew more agitated with each conversation as he slowly began to realize that someone had discovered his activities and was taking aggressive legal action against him. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen?" I heard him shouting into his phone. "I'm the owner of this company. You can't just freeze my business accounts without my authorization." The bank representative apparently explained that the freeze had been implemented pursuant to court orders related to asset preservation in family law proceedings. This was Michael's first indication that his secret activities had been discovered and that legal action was already underway. His next call was to Rebecca Martinez's office, though he didn't know that Rebecca was representing me. When the receptionist informed him that Ms. Martinez was not available to take new clients at this time, Michael became even more confused and frustrated. "I need to speak with a family law attorney immediately," Michael said during his next call. "There's been some kind of mistake with court orders affecting my business accounts." Rebecca had anticipated this reaction and had advised me to remain completely calm and supportive during Michael's initial panic. "Let him discover the full scope of the situation gradually," she had said. "The longer he believes this might be a mistake or misunderstanding, the more likely he is to make additional incriminating statements." By noon, Michael had learned that emergency restraining orders had been filed preventing him from selling his business, accessing certain financial accounts, or making any major changes to our family's asset structure. He had also discovered that his credit cards were not experiencing technical difficulties, but had been deliberately restricted due to legal proceedings. The moment of truth arrived when Michael's business partner, James Richardson, called with devastating news about the planned sale of their telecommunications company. "Michael, I just got off the phone with the potential buyers, James said, his voice clearly audible from across the room. They're pulling out of the deal completely. Their lawyers found out about some kind of family court action that could affect the company's ownership structure, and they don't want to get involved in legal complications. This was the moment when Michael finally understood that his secret plans had been completely compromised. The business sale that was supposed to fund his new life with Sophia Chen had been derailed by legal action he hadn't seen coming. His carefully orchestrated exit strategy was collapsing in real time. "Jennifer!" Michael called out, his voice carrying a note of panic I had never heard before. "I need to talk to you right now." I found him in his office, surrounded by legal documents that had been delivered throughout the morning. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his hair messed from running his hands through it in frustration, and his eyes showed the wild look of a man whose carefully constructed world was falling apart. "What the hell is going on?" Michael demanded, holding up court papers that detailed the asset preservation orders. "Why are there legal documents saying that I can't access my own business accounts?" This was the moment I had been preparing for during months of investigation and legal planning. The confrontation that would expose Michael's deception while revealing the full extent of my strategic response to his betrayal. "Sit down, Michael," I said calmly, taking a seat across from his desk. "We need to discuss your recent activities and their consequences." "My activities? What are you talking about?" Michael's defensive tone confirmed that he was still hoping to maintain his lies even in the face of obvious legal action. I pulled out a manila folder containing photographs, financial records, and transcripts of recorded conversations that Sam Rodriguez had gathered during months of surveillance. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, documenting every aspect of Michael's affair and his plans to abandon our family. "Let's start with your relationship with Sophia Chen," I said, placing a photograph of Michael and Sophia kissing outside the Montage Laguna Beach Resort on his desk. "This was taken yesterday evening, during your telecommunications conference in Los Angeles." Michael's face went completely white as he stared at the photograph. His mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. "Jennifer, I can explain this. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I replied, adding more photographs to the collection on his desk. "Because it looks like you proposed to Ms. Chen on Friday night and spent the weekend shopping for wedding rings while using our family's credit cards to pay for your romantic getaway." The color drained from Michael's face as he saw photographic evidence of his proposal dinner, complete with images of him slipping an engagement ring onto Sophia's finger while other diners applauded their apparent happiness. "How did you get these pictures?" Michael asked weakly, apparently unable to deny the obvious evidence in front of him. "I hired private investigator Samuel Rodriguez 3 months ago to document your activities," I replied. "The same day I discovered the first suspicious charges on our credit cards. Since then, we've been gathering comprehensive evidence of your affair, your financial deception, and your plans to abandon our family." I placed transcripts of Michael's recorded conversations with Sophia on the desk, including his promises about having $2 million to start their new life, and his dismissive comments about me being too passive to cause problems. "You've been systematically stealing from our family to fund your relationship with Ms. Chen while planning to sell your business and relocate to California," I continued. "You've also been attempting to hide assets in offshore accounts to prevent me from accessing fair financial support during divorce proceedings." Michael's shock was gradually being replaced by anger as he realized how thoroughly his deception had been exposed. "You had me followed? You invaded my privacy and spied on me? I protected our family's interests when I discovered that my husband was living a double life," I replied firmly. "Everything I did was completely legal and necessary to prevent you from stealing our children's future to fund your affair." The next revelation would be even more devastating to Michael's plans. I placed the trust arbitration documents on his desk, showing the preliminary ruling that revoked his beneficiary status in Theodore Walsh's family trust. Your grandfather's trust contained a morality clause that you apparently never bothered to read carefully, I explained. Arbitrator Williams has determined that your adultery and abandonment of family responsibilities constitute clear violations of the trust terms. You forfeited your entire interest in the trust, which reverts to me as the surviving co-trustee. Michael stared at the arbitration documents in complete shock. That's impossible. The trust money belongs to both of us. You can't just take it away. Actually, I can, and I have, I replied. Your violation of the morality clause is automatic and irrevocable according to your grandfather's will. The $1.2 million you were counting on to fund your new life with. Sophia no longer belongs to you. But the most devastating blow was yet to come. I explained how the trust's business integration clause affected his telecommunications company and how the loss of trust support would significantly reduce the company's market value. The buyers who were interested in purchasing your business have withdrawn their offer, I continued. They don't want to acquire a company that's involved in family court litigation, and that may lose significant financial support. Your $750,000 business sale has been completely derailed. Michael's anger was now mixed with genuine panic as he began to understand the full scope of how his betrayal had backfired. You can't do this to me, Jennifer. I built that business from nothing. You have no right to destroy everything I've worked for. I didn't destroy anything, I replied calmly. You destroyed your own life when you decided to betray your family and steal from our children's future. Every consequence you're facing is the direct result of choices you made. The final confrontation escalated when Michael's phone rang with a call from Sophia Chen, who had apparently been trying to reach him since his credit cards had stopped working during their weekend getaway. Don't answer that call, I said as Michael reached for his phone. You can't tell me who I can and can't talk to, Michael replied defiantly, accepting the call and putting it on speaker. Michael, thank God. Sophia's voice filled the room. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Something weird happened with your credit cards yesterday, and now my coworkers are saying there are rumors about legal problems with your business. What's going on? The moment had arrived for the most dramatic revelation of all. I leaned forward and spoke directly into the phone. Hello, Sophia. This is Jennifer Walsh, Michael's wife of 15 years and the mother of his 2 children. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Sophia finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Wife? Michael told me he was divorced. He said his ex-wife had moved away and that his children lived with their mother. Michael has been lying to both of us, I replied. He's very much married, and his children live in this house with him every day. The engagement ring he gave. You was purchased with our family's money, and the wedding you're planning will never happen because he's about to face criminal charges for fraud and bigamy. Sophia's response was immediate and emotional. Michael, is this true? Are you really still married? Michael looked like a trapped animal as he stared at the phone, apparently unable to formulate any response that could salvage the situation. I can explain everything, he finally managed to say. Jennifer is exaggerating the situation. Yes, we're technically still married, but we've been separated for months. The divorce is just a formality. That's not true, I interjected. We've been living together as husband and wife until this moment. Michael has never filed for divorce or even discussed separation with me. Everything he's told you about our marriage has been a complete fabrication. The phone call ended abruptly as Sophia hung up, apparently unable to process the revelation that the man she had agreed to marry was living an elaborate double life. Michael stared at his phone in devastation, finally understanding that his relationship with Sophia was probably over and that his careful plans for a new life had been completely destroyed. You've ruined everything, Michael said, his voice hollow with defeat. No, I replied firmly. You ruined everything when you decided to betray your family. I simply made sure that your betrayal would have appropriate consequences. The confrontation that would change our family forever was far from over. but the balance of power had shifted completely. Michael's secret weapons had been neutralized, his financial resources had been frozen, and his double life had been exposed to everyone who mattered. The man who had spent months planning my destruction was beginning to understand that he had severely underestimated the woman he had decided to betray. The weeks following our confrontation unfolded with the methodical precision of a legal machine that Michael had never seen coming. Within 72 hours of our explosive face-to-face meeting, his entire world had been systematically dismantled by consequences he had never imagined possible. The first domino to fall was his relationship with Sophia Chen. According to Sam Rodriguez's final surveillance report, Sophia had driven directly from her Phoenix apartment to Michael's office building on Tuesday morning, demanding answers about the revelations from our phone call. The security cameras in the Kierland Corporate Center parking garage captured their heated confrontation, which ended with Sophia throwing the engagement ring Michael had given her at his feet before driving away. "Ms. Chen has blocked all communication from your husband," Sam reported during our final meeting. "She's also posted on social media that she was the victim of an elaborate deception and that anyone who knows Michael Walsh should be aware of his dishonest character." The post has been shared over 200 times within her professional network. Sophia's public exposure of Michael's lies was perhaps more devastating to his business reputation than any legal action could have been. Within days, 3 of his major clients had terminated their contracts, citing concerns about his personal integrity and the negative publicity surrounding his business. The telecommunications company that Michael had spent over a decade building was hemorrhaging clients and revenue at a catastrophic rate. Meanwhile, the federal investigation that arbitrator Williams had recommended was proceeding with frightening efficiency. IRS Criminal Investigation Division agents had seized Michael's business computers and were conducting a comprehensive audit of his financial activities over the past 5 years. The offshore banking research I had discovered in Michael's browsing history had triggered serious concerns about tax evasion and money laundering. Agent Patricia Vega from the IRS contacted Rebecca Martinez to discuss Michael's case and its implications for our family's legal proceedings. "Your husband's attempts to hide assets in overseas accounts constitute potential federal crimes," Agent Vega explained during a conference call. "The penalties for tax evasion and financial fraud can include significant prison time and complete forfeiture of hidden assets." This federal investigation added a criminal dimension to Michael's problems that went far beyond our divorce proceedings. Even if he had somehow managed to salvage his business or maintain his relationship with Sophia, the possibility of federal charges meant that his future freedom was now in jeopardy. The most satisfying development came when the trust arbitration reached its final conclusion. Arbitrator Williams issued a comprehensive ruling that not only confirmed Michael's permanent removal as a beneficiary, but also included scathing commentary about his character and conduct. Mr. Walsh's systematic deception of his family, his attempts to hide marital assets, and his abandonment of parental responsibilities represent a profound violation of the moral principles that Theodore Walsh intended to protect through this trust structure, the arbitrator wrote. The evidence demonstrates a calculated pattern of behavior designed to steal from his children's future while betraying every value that this family trust was established to preserve. The arbitrator's ruling was legally binding and irreversible. Michael's $600,000 share of the trust assets was permanently transferred to my control, giving our children the financial security that their father had tried to steal from them. Additionally, the trust's business integration clause meant that Michael's telecommunications company would lose access to the low-interest loans and shared resources that had supported its operations for over a decade. David Kim, our forensic accountant, calculated that the loss of trust support would reduce the company's market value by approximately $250,000, assuming Michael could find any buyers willing to purchase a business embroiled in legal controversy. Combined with the client defections following Sophia's social media exposure, Michael's company was worth less than half of what he had been expecting to receive just months earlier. The divorce proceedings moved forward with unprecedented speed due to the overwhelming evidence of Michael's misconduct. Rebecca had assembled a case so comprehensive that Michael's attorney advised him to accept whatever settlement terms we offered, rather than risk a trial that would result in even more devastating consequences. "Your husband's lawyer has essentially advised him to surrender," Rebecca informed me during one of our strategy sessions. "They know that taking this case to trial would result in maximum sanctions for financial misconduct and potentially criminal referrals for perjury if Michael attempted to lie under oath." The settlement terms I offered through Rebecca were designed to ensure justice while protecting our children's well-being. Michael would receive minimal spousal support for a limited time, maintain supervised visitation rights with Emma and Tyler, and be required to pay substantial child support calculated on his pre-affair income level. Most importantly, he would be permanently prohibited from relocating the children outside of Arizona or interfering with their education and extracurricular activities. Michael's response to these terms revealed the depth of his delusion about his situation. Through his attorney, he initially demanded equal custody of the children and a 50-50 split of all marital assets, apparently believing that he could somehow negotiate his way out of the consequences of his betrayal. My client maintains that his relationship with Ms. Chen developed only after his marriage had already deteriorated, Michael's lawyer argued during our first settlement conference. He believes that the trust arbitration was influenced by biased evidence and should be appealed. Rebecca's response was swift and devastating. She presented audio recordings of Michael's statements about planning to abandon the children, financial records showing his systematic theft of marital assets, and testimony from witnesses who had observed his deceptive behavior over many months. "Your client can certainly appeal the trust arbitration," Rebecca replied coolly. "However, he should be aware that the appeals process will require him to pay legal fees he can no longer afford, while facing potential federal criminal charges that could result in his imprisonment. I would suggest that he focus on accepting responsibility for his actions, rather than continuing to waste everyone's time with frivolous legal arguments." The settlement conference ended with Michael's attorney requesting a recess to discuss reality with his client. When they returned an hour later, Michael had agreed to accept our terms without modification. The man who had spent months planning to leave our family with nothing would instead leave our marriage with virtually nothing himself. Emma and Tyler's reactions to their father's downfall were complex and heartbreaking. At 14, Emma was old enough to understand the basics of what Michael had done, though I was careful to present the information in age-appropriate terms that focused on his poor choices rather than graphic details of his affair. "Dad really was planning to move to California without us?" Emma asked during one of our difficult conversations about the family's future. "Your father made some very bad decisions that hurt our family," I replied carefully. "He was more concerned about his own desires than about taking care of you and Tyler. That's why the court has made sure that he can't make those kinds of decisions anymore." Tyler, at 12, struggled more with the abstract concepts of betrayal and deception, but he clearly understood that his father would no longer be living in our house and that their relationship would be different going forward. "Is Dad a bad person?" Tyler asked with the directness that only children possess. "Your father is a person who made very bad choices," I replied. "That doesn't mean he doesn't love you, but it does mean that he can't be trusted to make good decisions about our family anymore." Both children would need counseling to process their father's betrayal and the dramatic changes in their family structure, but they were resilient and had each other for support. More importantly, they now had financial security that would ensure their educational and personal development wouldn't be compromised by Michael's selfishness. The final chapter in Michael's destruction came when he was forced to declare personal bankruptcy due to his inability to pay legal fees and the IRS penalties associated with his hidden offshore accounts. The man who had once controlled assets worth over $2 million was reduced to living in a modest apartment and working as a contract consultant for other telecommunications firms. His reputation in the Phoenix business community was permanently destroyed by the combination of federal investigation, public exposure of his lies, and the professional network gossip that had spread through social media and industry publications. The clients who had once trusted him with major projects now viewed him as a cautionary tale about the dangers of personal and professional deception. 6 months after our confrontation, I received word that Michael had moved to Las Vegas, apparently seeking a fresh start in a city where his reputation hadn't preceded him. His supervised visitation rights with Emma and Tyler required him to return to Phoenix twice monthly, but his relationship with the children remained strained and formal. During one of his visits, Tyler asked his father directly why he had tried to leave them behind when he moved to California. Michael's response revealed that he still didn't fully understand the magnitude of what he had lost. "Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're trying to find happiness," Michael told his son. "I thought I could build a better life for everyone, but I was wrong about how to do it." His inability to take full responsibility for his betrayal suggested that Michael would likely repeat similar patterns in future relationships. The man who had been too selfish to consider his family's needs was probably too selfish to learn meaningful lessons from his downfall. Meanwhile, my own transformation was complete and irreversible. The passive wife who had trusted her husband completely for 15 years had been replaced by a confident, strategic woman who understood her own strength and capabilities. I had discovered that I possessed skills in investigation, legal strategy, and financial planning that I had never known existed. More importantly, I had proven to myself that love without verification was simply naivety, and that protecting the people I cared about sometimes required taking actions that felt uncomfortable or unfamiliar. The woman who had once deferred to Michael's judgment on every important decision was now making complex financial and legal choices with confidence and competence. The trust fund that Theodore Walsh had established to protect his family's values had ultimately served its intended purpose, though probably not in ways the old man had anticipated. His conservative moral principles and careful legal planning had reached across more than a decade to ensure that his grandson's betrayal resulted in appropriate consequences. As for the airport incident that had started this entire story, that dramatic confrontation never actually occurred. By the time I had finished dismantling Michael's life, he no longer had the resources or courage to attempt any grand gestures of abandonment. The man who might once have been cruel enough to strand his wife at an airport had been reduced to someone who could barely afford his own transportation, let alone coordinate elaborate schemes of revenge. The title of this story represents what Michael had been planning to do: abandon me in the most humiliating way possible while stealing our family's assets to fund his new life. Instead, he discovered that underestimating your opponent is the most dangerous mistake you can make in any conflict. Today, Emma is thriving in her junior year of high school and has already received recruiting interest from several colleges for her tennis achievements. Tyler has developed into a confident young man with strong academic performance and a mature understanding of personal integrity. Both children have learned valuable lessons about the importance of honesty, loyalty, and keeping promises to the people who depend on you. As for me, I've become an advocate for other women facing similar betrayals, sharing my experience and legal strategies through speaking engagements and support groups. The investigation and legal skills I developed during my battle with Michael have proven valuable in helping other families protect themselves from financial abuse and marital deception. The woman who once believed that a perfect marriage could be maintained through trust and support now understands that protecting your family sometimes requires verification, preparation, and the willingness to fight for what matters most. Michael's betrayal taught me that the people closest to you can sometimes pose the greatest threats to your security, but it also taught me that I possessed the strength and intelligence to defend everything I valued. In the end, Michael's attempt to leave me with nothing had exactly the opposite result. He left our marriage with nothing, while I gained everything I needed to build a stronger, more secure future for our children and myself. The devoted wife who had supported his dreams for 15 years had become the architect of his destruction. And that transformation was worth more than any amount of money he could have stolen from our family. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.